Welcome to Natu Reads, an audio library of revolutionary texts. Scripting the Change. Selected writings of Anuradha Ghandy. The Bitter Lessons of Khaparkheda. Not only were the rank-and-file stiffs the dispossessed and downtrodden, they were also voteless non-citizens with residences no more permanent than a boxcar or a bunkhouse, and no property bulkier than their bedroll. Kenneth Alsop, Hard Travelin'. The plight of the construction workers employed on the sites of major projects is among the most insecure and the most exploited in the country. Working under petty contractors, they have neither the security of service nor the guarantee of continuous work. While the construction and engineering companies at these sites are making huge profits and boardroom battles are being fought by the rising stars in the Indian comprador firmament, the NRIs, to buy over these companies, the construction workers are putting up militant fights to improve their wages and working conditions. Most of these struggles are in the form of outbursts and desperate attempts in which the workers do not fear to destroy the machinery or attack the police. On most occasions, after such a battle, the site becomes an abandoned, scarred battlefield, the workers having fled to the other sites. The wave of struggles has reached the construction sites in Vidarbha, Maharashtra as well. Vidarbha, the eastern part of Maharashtra, is dotted with coal fields and, as of now, 2 thermal plants are under construction at projects that are controlled by the Maharashtra State Electricity Board, MSEB. Although it has been announced that the next phase of these projects will go to private companies, most probably Reliance and the Birlas. About a year ago, the construction workers at the Durgapur site near Chandrapur started organizing themselves under the banner of the Akhil Maharashtra Kamgar Union, AMKU. 6 months later, the union has spread to the Khaparkheda site. The company does not recognize its own workers. The Khaparkheda site, about 25 kilometers from Nagpur, is situated in the Sauner coal belt. 3 years ago, construction work began for the first phase of a 4-unit thermal plant. During the first phase of this 417 crore rupee project of 210 megawatt units, the MSEB contracted out the work to Bharat Heavy Electricities Limited, BHEL, on a turnkey basis. As in every other site, here too, other companies were given subcontracts for various parts of the construction, both engineering and civil. These companies, in turn, employ smaller companies or subcontractors. Further, these subcontractors either employ workers directly or through a petty contractor. This petty is a slippery creature. When the government labor officer arrives, the petty turns into a supervisor. For the workers, he is their employer, moneylender, relative, and terror. As for the contractor company, and for the principal employer, the worker is not theirs. They do not recognize the worker. The construction sites in India operate under primitive conditions. The workers are employed on a short-term basis. Rates of payment are fixed arbitrarily, and the hiring and firing of workers is summarily done. The worker is casual, and the company has no responsibility towards him. The workers in the mechanical section, the welders, fitters, electricians, riggers, etc., are a tough lot. They move from site to site, exploited and hounded, but with a strong sense of pride and self-respect. On the contrary, the workers of the civil section, mostly unskilled, working with cement and bricks, are either local or semi-bonded, brought by the petty contractors from Orissa, Chhattisgarh, Andhra Pradesh, etc. Over 3,000 such workers are employed at the site at Khaparkheda. Accidents are treated in a casual fashion and not recorded by the companies. The workers are treated in private clinics, and there is no question of legally prescribed compensation for the permanently injured. If a worker dies, his family is brought from the village, some money paid to them, and the dead body hurriedly disposed of. Formation of the Union and agitation. In August 1988, when the AMKU entered the site at Khaparkheda, the situation was more than ripe for the struggle. By the beginning of September, workers of more than 10 companies had joined the AMKU. As soon as the workers realized that the maximum wage rates prescribed for the construction industry were much higher than what they were receiving, they surged forward to press their managements to implement the statutory rates immediately. The managements of the bigger companies, like Bakaw Wolf India Limited, Bharat Steels and Tubes Limited, were forced to pay the minimum wages according to the Zone 3 notification. These companies, which had been flouting the law by paying overtime at the single rate, were forced to pay the statutory double rate for overtime work. As a result of this, a wave of enthusiasm spread through the site. The AMKU committee meetings became mini public meetings as the number of workers taking the initiative continued to increase. It became a movement of these suppressed workers. Stories of struggles at other sites, such as the agitation at Damanchodi at Saktinagar, Vaaka, Ramaguddam, etc., were circulated with exaggerated, often fictionalized versions of the struggle, the repression, and the gains obtained. But this helped to boost the morale of the workers even further, although it also highly raised their expectations. Those workers who faced retrenchment after the contract with their petty contractor was over refused to accept it. Tensions started building up with the management trying hard to get rid of these workers. The workers, on their part, insisted that they should be retained on the site. They refused to recognize the unlicensed petty contractor. In spite of the fact that the petty had no license, and that the workers facing retrenchment were senior to the workers employed by other subcontractors of the company, the Office of the Deputy Commissioner of Labor recognized the subcontract between the company and the subcontractor. This subcontract was more important to the Deputy Commissioner than the rights of the workers and the rules under the labor laws of the land. By the middle of September, the Deputy Commissioner of Labor declared that the site at Khaparkheda came under Zone 1 for the minimum wage rates for the construction industry, as a result of a careful check of the notification as demanded by the AMKU. This meant a raise of about 4 rupees per day in the statutory wage rate. A fresh wave of enthusiasm spread throughout the site, with the workers now demanding the immediate implementation of Zone 1 rates. While in the beginning, the mechanical workers were in the forefront of the struggle, by the end of September, the civil, unskilled men and women had also joined the struggle. The workers of the Public Sector Engineering Projects India Limited, EPIL, struck work spontaneously, demanding the implementation of minimum wages. When the project manager was Geraud on 26 September, he promised to pay the minimum rates, but later closed the site office and refused to return. The struggle took a new turn. The petty contractor of EPIL refused to give work to the workers unless they agreed to work at the old rates of 10 rupees to 12 rupees. The workers resisted this bullying. When the manager did not open the site office, over 1,000 workers took out a morcha to the MSEB and BHEL offices outside the site. They blocked the office entrance for more than 2 hours. After the intervention of various authorities, like the district collector, the deputy commissioner of labor, the EPIL was forced to open its site office and start making payments at the minimum wage rates. While the payments at the rate of minimum wages to the mechanical workers may have cut into the super profits of the companies, the payment to the civil workers also cut into the profits of the company and its hierarchy of petty contractors. Hence, their reaction to this victory was swift. On the fourth day of the payment, a riot was engineered within the site by the INTUC, Indian National Trade Union Congress, supported petty contractor. This brought the entire process of normalization to a close. Even as the workers of the other companies were demanding and agitating for the implementation of Zone 1 rates, the MSEB, the BHEL, and the company officials sank their differences and started their confabulations. The AMKU was trapped into negotiations, and the state began its multi-pronged attack. The INTUC was activated with the open blessings of the local Congress I MLA. Legal cases were filed against the AMKU, and the state prepared its machinery of repression to be deployed at the site. The police attempted to arrest 3 active leading workers of the AMKU on 24 October 1988. As news leaked out that they were to be whisked away to the Tahsil headquarters, almost 1,000 workers gathered outside the police station within half an hour. The police were forced to release the workers. A victory procession with the released workers on their shoulders wound its way into the site. It was the peak of the workers' show of strength. The procession moved backwards and forwards inside the site and the town's main street. The entire site was closed as over 3,000 workers participated in the procession. The next day evening, the Special Reserve Police, SRP, was moved in, and the houses of active workers were raided that night. The morning after, the workers that reported at the site for work were provoked and trapped into a planned and brutal lathi charge. The police themselves broke the glass of their jeep to add meat to their story of violence by the workers. In the lathi charge and firing, almost 100 workers were injured, and about 10 policemen, including the DSP, sustained minor injuries. Over 200 workers were arrested. Union activists who went to arrange the legal aid were also arrested. A house-to-house hunt for some of the active workers who had escaped arrest began. Khaparkheda was turned into a garrison town. But the real attack was to come later. Taking advantage of the SRP, posted in front of every company's site office, the workers who had been active were turned away. Militant men and women workers were denied work. In cases where several workers of the same subcontractor were active, the contract itself was terminated. None of the niceties of the law regarding termination needed to be followed. While some of the more professional managements gave 1 month's notice pay to their terminated workers, a public sector company like the EPIL even refused to give the month's wages that were due. In this way, almost 400 workers lost their jobs. This was the fate of the unprotected contract worker, who was only a casual employed by the petty. On 2 November 1988, a week after the lathi charge, almost 1,000 workers participated in a morcha organized by several unions to protest against the repression. A dharna and a chain hunger strike were launched, and they were continued for 3 weeks to press the issue of the termination of the workers and the presence of the SRP at the site. A public meeting and a morcha to the assembly, when the session was on in Nagpur, were also organized. But the workers, unprotected by any law, were not taken back. Meanwhile, civil construction companies like the EPIL once again lowered their wage rates. The entire state, from the Congress I leadership to the state machinery to senior officers of the BHEL and the MSEB, had come together to crush the organization of these contract workers. Nonetheless, the struggle has left its mark. Basically, it was a spontaneous movement of the workers against the contract system and the local Congress that backed the contractors. While only a part of the gains and wages could be retained, the awareness about minimum wages was spread throughout the entire area. The Congress I and the INTUC were exposed for their open support of managements. The AITUC, All India Trade Union Congress, were exposed when they opened an office after the lathi charge and deployed a petty contractor to wean away workers and opposed the demand for the implementation of minimum wages for civil workers as being impractical. This struggle and its collapse, the repression and the reaction, have shown that negotiations, gradualism, and the niceties of strategy have no place in the fight against these engineering/construction companies. Violence simmers below the surface. There is an atmosphere of ruthlessness. This erupts into fights with the contractors. This atmosphere created by the companies against the workers makes them fight desperate battles. The migrant worker was the creation of early capitalism in Russia and the USA. But in India, under the supervision of the imperialists, the Rajiv Gandhi government has launched its privatization drive. The expansion of the contract system is only one of its aspects. As the World Bank finances projects around the country to take India into the modern era, the 21st century, the number of contract workers is growing. Their attempts to organize themselves and their struggles gain significance in the context of this policy of the government.